Simon of the Desert will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. There are just over 20 minutes left in this qualification session. Malero will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. David Zahn looks to be off the pace. Janet, what can he do to improve?
Good question, Marco. It's all or nothing now. He'll need to stay focused, hit the brake markers, and extract every ounce of performance from that.
David Zahn is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.777. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. Malero will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. Malero will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. Simon of the Desert is up 0.1. Simon of the Desert will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. Simon of the Desert will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. Simon of the Desert does not look to be improving on this lap. Janet, any thoughts on ways to improve?
Every driver needs something different, Marco.
Simon of the Desert will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. There are just over 15 minutes left in this qualification session. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. Simon of the Desert is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.633.
That's a great time, but it's always a good idea to keeping pushing for every last tenth and hundredth.
David Zahn currently has 0.109 of a gap to match P1. Janet, any thoughts on ways to improve?
Well, Marco, he'll need to find those.
David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. You can feel the tension building. Kevin Lekmansky is out on track and getting ready to push for his qualifying time.
It's all about finding that balance between staying calm and focused, while also pushing the limits.
As Kevin Lekmansky completes the outlap, he will be hoping there's enough space on track to fully attack on the flying lap. Kevin Lekmansky crosses the start-finish line at the end of his outlap. Kevin Lekmansky completes that lap in his ASRL Legends car, putting him in P4. Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session.
It may be difficult for him to find that missing 0.839, but that won't stop him from trying.
Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. There are just over 10 minutes left in this qualification session. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. Malero looks to be off the pace. Janet, what can he do to improve?
He'll need to put together a perfect lap, hitting every apex and pushing the car to the limit without going over it.
David Zahn does not look to be improving on this lap. Janet, any thoughts on ways to improve? David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for fourth in this qualifying session. Malero looks to be off the pace. Janet, what can he do to improve?
Every driver needs something different, Marco. Some drivers excel when they push harder, while other drivers benefit more from relaxing and being in a flow state.
David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. Malero will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. Simon of the Desert does not look to be improving on this lap. Janet, any thoughts on ways to improve?
Well, Marco, you'll need to find those extra
Simon of the Desert is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.633. Simon of the Desert is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.633. Malero looks to be off the pace. Janet, what can he do to improve?
It's easy for a driver to get into a rhythm on the track, but there's no guarantee that rhythm is right. Each corner needs to be constantly re-evaluated to look for a better line.
Malero is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.623.
It may be difficult for him to improve on that. Sometimes trying too hard makes you slower. It's far better to drive smooth and smart.
Malero is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.623. Malero is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.623.
That's a great time, but it's always a good idea to keeping pushing for every last tenth and hundredth.
Simon of the Desert will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. Simon of the Desert is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.633. Simon of the Desert will be happy, with a time good enough for second in this qualifying session. A solid performance from David Zahn, currently holding down P4. However, with the session coming to a close, he'll need to find that extra bit of speed to move up the grid. And there goes Kevin Lekmansky, currently in P3. He's shown great skill and consistency so far, but with a few minutes left, there's still a chance to improve on that time. Kevin Lekmansky will be happy, with a time good enough for third in this qualifying session. A solid Simon of the Desert is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.633. Impressive work from David Zahn, who has claimed fourth on the grid. Now, the focus is on maintaining his composure and push for an even better starting position.
I couldn't agree more, Marco. Zahn.
David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for 4th in this qualifying session. Kevin Lekmansky has put in a great effort and currently holds 3rd. With the session winding down, time is running out to unleash his full potential. David Zahn will be happy, with a time good enough for 4th in this qualifying session. Kevin Lekmansky is currently on provisional pole, with a time of 0:18.604. You've joined us on a breezy day here at ASRL Joesville, as we're getting ready to kick things off. Malero is starting this race on pole.
Malero is sure to be excited at his prospects for this race.
Starting on the front row is a great opportunity for Kevin Lekmansky to challenge for the lead.
He will have to keep his foot on the gas in order to stay at the sharp end of the grid.
In 3rd place, we have David Zahn.
David will be ready to show what he's made of.
Securing the 4th place is Simon of the Desert.
Simon will be expecting to bring home solid points.
The formation lap is underway as the safety car leads the drivers out through the first lap. As the drivers make their way around the formation lap, tensions are high and the excitement is so thick you can almost see it.
This is the moment where they need to stay focused and keep their cool. It's a real test of their mental and physical preparation.
The teams will also be keeping a close eye on their drivers, ensuring everything is running smoothly. The starting signal has been given, and the drivers face the uncertainty of the first lap. With cars packed tightly together, the potential for spins or collisions is high.
Staying out of trouble in these early moments is crucial. It's a fine line between pushing hard and staying safe.
There's not much to report on from Simon of the Desert at the moment. He's just keeping his head down and putting in consistent laps.
Sometimes that's all it takes to secure a good result. Simon just needs to stay focused and avoid any mistakes.
It looks like Malero braking update. What a move. Malero has moved up to first.
You can't argue with results like that. Malero is really making his mark on this race.
A setback for Malero, who has just been passed. Things are heating up as David Zahn tries to close the gap to Simon of the Desert. Kevin breaking news, folks. And Kevin Lekmansky has just won the place from Simon of the Desert. Tough break for Malero, who has just lost a position.
Yes, but he can't give up. There's still plenty of time left in this race, and Malero needs to stay focused and keep pushing.
It's an intense battle for position as Kevin Lekmansky tries to outmaneuver Malero. This is edge of your seat racing.
This is the moment where legends are made. These drivers will go down in history as the ones who fought tooth and nail for the top spot.
The action is non-stop as Malero shadows Kevin Lekmanski through every twist and turn, determined to claim first. They're going side by side, door handle to door handle. This is as close as it gets, folks. I would not be surprised if these drivers swap positions a few times before the order gets ultimately decided.
Absolutely, Marco. The energy in the crowd is electric, and it's no wonder why. These drivers are leaving it all on the track, fighting tooth and nail for victory. It's anyone's guess who will come out on top.
Things are getting spicy now, as Ryan Wilson and David Zahn look to battle it out for fourth place. This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. David Zahn is chasing Ryan Wilson in P4. We've got an edge of your seat battle between Malero in second and Simon of the Desert in 3, with just 0.2 seconds between them.
Yeah, I really can't see him holding on to this place for much longer.
It's all eyes on this battle as Ryan Wilson in third tries to hold off the challenge of Simon of the Desert. It's a tense battle for position between Simon of the Desert in 4th and David Zahn in 5. Simon of the Desert is keeping David Zahn at bay with a gap of 0.2 seconds.
Absolutely. Simon is really making that car as wide as possible, not giving Dave an inch of space. It's going to take something special for Dave to get past him.
The race is really heating up. David Zahn is hunting down Simon of the Desert with everything he's got. It's a close race between Ryan Wilson and Malero in second.
As an experienced driver, I can tell you that Ryan must be laser focused on Malero's every move, looking for the slightest weakness to exploit.
Looks like we might have a great battle starting here between Simon of the Desert in 4th and David Zahn. It's been tense with a gap of only 0.4 seconds.
Simon is doing a great job of defending in the lead, and Dave is pushing hard to close the gap. It's an exciting race and it's not over yet.
This is where the race gets really interesting. David Zahn is closing in on Simon of the Desert.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Zahn needs to stay patient and wait for Simon to make a mistake.
This is what it's all about, folks. Malero is in hot pursuit of Ryan Wilson, who's just trying to stay ahead. Even though David Zahn is a fair way behind Simon of the Desert, he can't afford to let his guard down. Hold up, breaking info. Heartbreak for Simon of the Desert, as they slip down the field.
Definitely, but Simon is a skilled driver, and has what it takes to fight back and regain that position.
Rising to the occasion and claiming victory would hope to cement David Zahn's legendary status.
This battle between Zahn and Simon is so intense, you could cut the tension with a knife, or should I say, with a front wing.
Oh, this is getting intense. Ryan Wilson is just a few car lengths behind Kevin Lekmanski. Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed. We got a close battle as Ryan Wilson closes in on Kevin Lekmanski.
This is what separates the good from the great. The ability to stay focused and perform under pressure.
David Zahn is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift.
I would not be surprised to see him get this pass completed soon.
Stop the press. Great driving from David Zahn, who has just gained a place and moved up to 4th.
Amazing stuff. Focus and precision, what it's all about.
Ryan Wilson is on a mission, chasing Kevin Lekmanski, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. It's a thrilling pursuit as David Zahn is right behind Simon of the Desert, keeping the pressure on for 3rd place.
Can Dave close up enough for a pass? I don't see it personally.
Look at that. Ryan Wilson is hot on the tail of Kevin Lekmanski.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. Wilson needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
David Zahn wants to close that gap with Simon of the Desert.
If you don't push the boundaries, you will never know where they are.
Looking at the lap times, David Zahn is not currently on pace with Simon of the Desert. Maybe he'll get a chance to see where to make up some time. Ryan Wilson is on a mission, chasing Kevin Lekmanski, who's currently got a comfortable lead.
The gap between them is now just over 0.6 seconds.
The pressure is on as David Zahn tries to catch up to Simon of the Desert.
The racing is getting tight between Zahn and Simon as they battle for P3. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
It's game on now. David Zahn has closed the gap to Simon of the Desert. It's now down to 0.3 seconds.
This is what racing is all about, hard-fought battles with as much determination as respect, between friends and enemies alike.
Ryan Wilson is looking for a way to close that gap to Kevin Lekmanski.
This is where every inch counts. Ryan is pushing hard to close the gap on Kevin.
The pursuit is on. David Zahn is closing the gap on Simon of the Desert, determined to claim P3.
David needs to focus to have a chance at getting past Simon.
Good news for David Zahn. The gap to Simon of the Desert has decreased. It's now down to 0.1 seconds.
This is where the pressure really starts to build. A driver that stays calm and focused is more likely to come out on top.
During your racing career, Janet, how did you determine when it was the right time to pit for fresh tires due to tire degradation?
It was a combination of factors, Marco. Monitoring lap times, communicating with the team about tire wear, and assessing the car's handling were all crucial in deciding when to make a pit stop for fresh tires.
Looks like Ryan Wilson is really hitting those curbs aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving.
Things are heating up as Ryan Wilson closes in on Kevin Lekmanski. The gap between them is down to practically nothing. It's a game of inches. Stop the press. A great moment for Simon of the Desert, who has just gained a place and moved up the standings. Oh dear, Simon of the Desert has dropped down to 4th. The fans are on the edge of their seats. It doesn't get any closer than this.
The slightest mistake from either driver could lead to a meeting with the barriers, and nobody wants an impromptu autograph session with the wall.
The battle for P3 is heating up as Simon of the Desert tries to catch David Zahn in P3.
The gap between them is just over 0.3 seconds. Can Simon close that gap and get back in range? I can't see it happening at this point.
These drivers are battling hard for this position, each one trying to outsmart and outmaneuver the other.
If this battle ends in tears, it could be like watching a high-speed domino effect. Let's hope they keep it clean and avoid any unplanned off-track excursions.
The adrenaline is pumping as Simon of the Desert gets within striking distance of David Zahn in their race for 3rd. It's like watching two predators circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce.
Should things go awry, Wilson and Lekmansky might find themselves giving a whole new meaning to the term tandem drifting, though I doubt they'd enjoy it as much as the spectators.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Simon of the Desert is chasing David Zahn in P3.
The mental game is just as important here. Simon must keep his cool while putting pressure on Dave.
This is what high-octane racing looks like. Ryan Wilson is breathing down the neck of Kevin Lekmansky, not giving him any room to relax.
It's a battle for position as Wilson tries to make a move on Lekmansky. This is what racing is all about.
This is a thrilling battle as Simon of the Desert edges closer to David Zahn in their fight for P3.
Don't forget the role of aerodynamics. Simon should use slipstreaming to his advantage and close the gap to David.
Ryan Wilson is looking for a way round Kevin Lekmansky.
There is no room for error in this battle.
Oh, this is getting intense. Simon of the Desert is just behind David Zahn.
It's a battle of nerves now. Simon and Dave are both pushing hard, but need to avoid mistakes that might cost them time or positions.
The gap between Ryan Wilson and Kevin Lekmansky is razor thin as they vie for first in this nail-biting contest.
And it's not just about skill and talent. It's about who has the nerves of steel to handle the pressure and make the right decisions at the right time.
Simon of the Desert is running fourth and trying to catch David Zahn. Ryan Wilson is giving it his all chasing down Kevin Lekmansky in P1. The race is really heating up. Simon of the Desert is hunting down David Zahn with everything he's got. Every move counts now as Ryan Wilson works to reel in Kevin Lekmansky and overtake for P1.
It's a game of strategy now as Wilson hunts down Lekmansky. Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
If Simon gets any closer to Dave, he'll need to send out wedding invitations.
Things are heating up as Ryan Wilson tries to close the gap to Kevin Lekmansky. Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed.
This is where every inch counts. Simon is pushing hard to close the gap on Zahn. Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
The pressure is on as Ryan Wilson tries to catch up to Kevin Lekmansky.
It's a fine line between pushing the car to its limits and losing control. Wilson is really walking that fine line.
Oh, this is getting intense. Simon of the Desert is just a few car lengths behind David Zahn. The intensity is off the charts as Ryan Wilson hounds Kevin Lekmansky, both drivers pushing themselves to the absolute limit. Looks like Simon of the Desert is really hitting those curves aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer. Simon is looking to close the 0.5 second gap and make a pass.
It seems like Ryan Wilson is getting in range of Kevin Lekmansky.
It looks like Wilson has the speed to make a move. I just hope he can do it cleanly.
The pursuit is on. Malero is closing the gap on Simon of the Desert, determined to claim P4. In racing, anything can, and usually does, happen, especially in such an epic showdown.
One wrong move and we could see a spectacular new synchronized pirouette performance by Wilson and Lekmansky, though I doubt the judges would give them a perfect score.
Look at that. Malero is hot on the tail of Simon of the Desert. This is where the race gets really interesting. Ryan Wilson is closing in on Kevin Lekmansky.
The gap between them is just over 0.3 seconds, which can feel like miles if you're trailing and not catching up.
Malero wants to get into Simon of the Desert's slipstream. Hold on a second. An impressive showing from Malero, who has gained positions and left Simon of the Desert in the dust.
Yes, but Malero needs to keep pushing hard. This race is far from over, and anything can happen. Malero needs to stay focused and drive with skill and determination.
No room for error here. Simon of the Desert is breathing down the neck of Malero, waiting for the perfect chance to make his move.
Simon is so close to Malero that if this were a dance floor, they'd be doing the tango.
Wow, Ryan Wilson is really pushing hard to catch up to Kevin Lekmansky.
This is where the mental game comes into play. Wilson and Kevin both need to stay cool under pressure.
Simon of the Desert is on a mission, chasing Malero, who's desperately trying to stay ahead. This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. Ryan Wilson is chasing Kevin Lekmansky in P1.
Wilson is really pushing the limits. He's riding the curbs and hustling that ASRL Legends car like a boss.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving.
This is a thrilling battle as Simon of the Desert edges closer to Malero in their fight for P4. The battle for P1 is heating up as Ryan Wilson tries to catch Kevin Lekmansky in P1.
This is not going to be an easy pass to make.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit.
And the drivers know it too, Marco. He's giving it everything he's got, and you can see him pushing the limits of the car's capabilities.
Ryan Wilson wants to find a way round Kevin Lekmansky.
I might have said this before, but dog, bone, you know the rest.
It's a close race between David Zahn and Malero in third.
If Zahn pushes too hard, he might end up taking the scenic route, and nobody's got time for sightseeing during a race.
The action is non-stop as Ryan Wilson shadows Kevin Lekmansky through every twist and turn, determined to claim first.
It's going to be a close one. Wilson will have to push hard to create an opportunity.
David Zahn is giving it his all, chasing down Malero in P3.
The gap is 0.3 seconds now. David is going to have to work a bit harder to close that gap with Malero.
Simon of the Desert is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift.
One important aspect here is choosing the right braking points. Simon needs to be precise to avoid overshooting and losing valuable time.
The race is really heating up. Ryan Wilson is hunting down Kevin Lekmansky with everything he's got.
It's all about finding the perfect opportunity. Wilson needs to stay patient and wait for Kevin to make a mistake.
Simon of the Desert is running fifth and trying to catch David Zahn.
You can see that car bouncing around as it rides the curbs. It's a risky move that could end in disaster.
It's an intense battle for position as Ryan Wilson tries to outmaneuver Kevin Lekmansky. This is edge of your seat racing.
Should things go south between Ryan and Lekmansky, we might witness a high-speed game of bumper cars, but trust me, it's way less fun with real race cars.
The gap between Ryan Wilson and Kevin Lekmansky is getting smaller.
He'll be looking for a mistake to pounce on.
Simon of the Desert is staying focused while chasing David Zahn in P4.
Absolutely, precision and control are key here. Knowing when to push and when to hold back can be the difference between winning and losing.
It's a thrilling pursuit as Ryan Wilson is right behind Kevin Lekmansky, keeping the pressure on for first place. The gap between Ryan Wilson and Kevin Lekmansky is growing. It's now up to 0.2 seconds.
This is a frustrating situation for Wilson, but he can't give up just yet. He'll need to keep pushing and hope for a mistake from Lekmansky.
It looks like David Zahn is pushing hard to catch up to Malero. Things are heating up as Ryan Wilson closes in on Kevin Lekmansky. The gap between them is down to practically nothing.
That's right, Wilson is determined to pass Lekmansky and secure a higher position.
Ryan Wilson could be on a charge here, Janet. He's just put in a quicker lap than Kevin Lekmansky.
As long as Wilson can maintain that consistency and pace, it will be interesting to see.
As a former driver, Janet, how did you manage the physical demands of racing?
It's all about preparation, Marco. Drivers undergo rigorous fitness training to build their strength, stamina, and flexibility. A proper diet and hydration plan is also essential to ensure peak performance on race day.
Hold on to your hats, folks. Ryan Wilson is right on the heels of Kevin Lekmansky, and we're in for a wild ride.
It looks like Ryan wants to take a cheeky peek up the inside.
Wow, it's a close race for first. Kevin Lekmansky is barely ahead with Ryan Wilson right on his tail. A gap of only 0.2 seconds.
Absolutely, Lekmansky in first is doing a fantastic job of maintaining his lead, but he can't afford to make a single mistake. Ryan is looking for any opportunity to make a move. This could be a battle to the finish line.
This is what it's all about, folks. Ryan Wilson is in hot pursuit of Kevin Lekmansky, who's just trying to stay ahead. It's looking good for Ryan Wilson, who has gained a place after passing Kevin Lekmansky. On the final lap now, and there it is, Ryan Wilson has completed the race in first place, setting a blistering pace that none of the other drivers could match. What a fantastic race from Kevin Lekmansky, who brings it home in second place. Well done to Malero for securing third place on the podium. In fourth and fifth, it's David Zahn and Simon of the Desert. There's a little bit of wind in the air today here at ASRL Joesville, as we're getting ready to kick things off.
The calm before the storm. I don't know about you, Marco, but I'm expecting some hard-fought on-track battles today.
Starting from pole position is the best possible outcome for David Zahn.
He can't get cocky. This is ASRL, and anything can happen.
Starting on the front row gives Simon of the Desert the best possible chance at challenging for the lead.
This is a great place to be, but there's always the threat of drivers right behind getting a better start and a slipstream into the first turn.
Malero will look to make a splash from the third position on the starting grid.
Malero is in a good place to mount a good challenge come the first corner.
Starting from the fourth position on the grid, we have Kevin Lekmansky.
The American driver will be focused on a good result from here.
Ryan Wilson is going to be starting from fifth.
It's like he's on the outside looking in, close enough to see the front without actually being there.
The formation lap is underway as the safety car leads the drivers out through the first lap.
You can feel the tension rise as we get ready to start the race.
It's a rolling start here at ASRL Joesville, as drivers are trying to get their tires up to temperature and doing final systems checks.
This is where they'll be sizing each
Green light and the race begins. As drivers jockey for position, they must be cautious of potential pileups.
This is where the real action begins. The drivers will be jostling for position and trying to gain any advantage they can.
Absolutely. It's a crucial part of the race, and the drivers will need to be on top of it to make it through here unscathed.
The first sector is always a bit of a nail-biter. With so many cars bunched together, one small mistake can be disastrous.
They'll need to keep their wits about them and stay focused if they want to come out of this section unscathed. It seems like Malero is pushing hard, currently on track to record his best lap so far this race.
Malero appears to be pushing.
Breaking update. A tough moment for Malero, who has just lost a place, now in third.
Yes, but there's still plenty of race left. Malero needs to stay calm and focused, and make his move when the time is right.
The gap between Ryan Wilson and Malero may be wide, but that doesn't mean Ryan Wilson is safe. He's got to maintain concentration and avoid any lapses in performance.
Surely he's got enough in the tank to pull away. Gonna be interesting to watch this battle unfold.
Oh, this is getting intense. Malero is just a few car lengths behind Ryan Wilson.
With just 0.4 seconds between them, Malero will need to close the gap to have hopes of a pass.
The fans are on the edge of their seats. It doesn't get any closer than this.
When I was racing, we had a saying, if you're not living on the edge, you're taking up too much space. Lekmansky is definitely living on the edge today.
It's a game of inches now as David Zahn tails Ryan Wilson closely. ready to capitalize on any mistake. This is a thrilling moment in the race, with Malero in third defending his position with everything he's got. But Kevin Lekmanski is relentless, and the gap is less than 0.2 seconds. It's anyone's position at this point.
You're right, Malero in third needs to stay cool under pressure and make every move count. But Lekmanski is a fierce competitor, and won't give up without a fight.
It's like watching two predators circling each other, waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. Breaking update. It's a tale of two drivers right now, with Kevin Lekmanski gaining places and Malero losing them.
Yes, but Lekmanski can't rest on his laurels, but needs to keep pushing to consolidate his position.
Rising to the occasion and claiming victory would hope to cement Simon of the Desert's legendary status.
If Simon isn't careful, he might end up turning this high-speed chase into a synchronized spinning routine, and trust me, that's not a crowd pleaser.
Look at that, they're trading places in every turn. Wait, the battle is on for David Zahn. He's sandwiched between two rivals, Lekmanski 0.2 seconds away and Malero 0.1 seconds ahead. It's a true test of his racecraft.
I couldn't agree more, Marco. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind provide valuable information for David. He'll need to assess the situation and use the gaps strategically to plan the next move.
The adrenaline is pumping as Simon of the Desert gets within striking distance of David Zahn in their race for fourth.
There's blood in the water for fourth place.
It's a challenging situation for Simon of the Desert. He's sandwiched between fierce competitors, 0.1 seconds away and Zahn 0.2 seconds ahead. He'll need to stay sharp and find an opportunity to make a move.
You hit the nail on the head, Marco. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind are crucial pieces of information for Simon's race strategy. It's a delicate dance, and he must remain vigilant.
Let's talk about tire degradation. Janet, how does it affect the car's handling and what do drivers need to do to adapt to the changing conditions?
Tire degradation can significantly impact handling, Marco. As the tires wear, the grip reduces, and drivers need to adjust their braking points, cornering speeds, and throttle application to maintain control of the car.
We got a close battle as Simon of the Desert closes in on David Zahn.
The only thing closer than Simon to David right now is the paint on their cars. Talk about a close encounter.
Talk about being caught in the middle. Simon of the Desert is sandwiched between some fierce competitors, 0.1 seconds behind and Dave 0.2 seconds ahead. The battle for position is on.
Spot on analysis, Marco. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind are like a double-edged sword for Simon. He can use the gaps to his advantage, but also needs to be aware of the threats from both directions.
Well, it doesn't look like Malero is going to be much of a threat to anyone soon, let alone Ryan Wilson.
Malero certainly isn't going to be close enough to mount any kind of challenge soon unless it's down to a mistake from Wilson.
Looks like Simon of the Desert is really hitting those curves aggressively, which can unsettle the car and cause handling issues.
Indeed, taking too much curb can upset the car's balance, leading to oversteer or understeer.
It seems like Simon of the Desert has got the bit between his teeth, improving on David Zahn's lap time there.
The question now is, can David respond to that and pick up the pace? I'm not so sure.
Things don't seem to be going Malero's way in this race, as that's a big gap he'll have to close to even be in with a shout for gaining a place here. The pressure is on as Simon of the Desert tries to catch up to David Zahn.
Sometimes you have to take risks to win, but pushing the car too hard can be a costly mistake. Simon needs to be careful not to overdo it.
Simon of the Desert is trying his best, but can't seem to find the pace to keep up with David Zahn at the moment.
It's not over yet, but Simon needs to get a move on if they want to catch up to Zahn.
Oh, this is getting intense. Malero needs to keep Ryan Wilson in his sights. It's neck and neck, the closest battle we've seen in a while.
If things go wrong between Simon and Zahn, they could be exchanging more than just paint, like maybe a strongly worded post-race chat.
What a tight spot for Simon of the Desert. Is right on his tail 0.1 seconds away, and Dave just inches ahead with a gap of 0.2 seconds. It's a true test of these drivers' racecraft abilities.
You're absolutely right, Marco. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind act as a measuring stick for Simon's performance. He'll have to keep a close eye on those gaps to stay in control of his race.
The gap between Ryan Wilson and Malero is pretty substantial right now. It's probably going to take a mistake from Ryan to even allow Malero to get a look in.
Anything can happen yet, and it usually does. I've certainly seen drivers come back from worse.
The pursuit is on. Simon of the Desert is closing the gap on David Zahn, determined to claim P4. Simon of the Desert is pushing hard and has reduced the gap to David Zahn to 0.2 seconds. Malero is trying his best to catch Ryan Wilson. Oh, this is getting intense. Simon of the Desert is just behind David Zahn.
This is the moment where legends are made. These drivers will go down in history as the ones who fought tooth and nail for the top spot.
Talk about pressure. Simon of the Desert is caught in the middle, feeling the heat from both and Dave. The pursuit is on. Malero is working on that gap to Ryan Wilson, determined to claim P1.
No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
Simon of the Desert is looking for an opportunity to get around David Zahn.
And if you're enjoying the racing, please remember to like and subscribe.
Oh, the pressure is on for Simon of the Desert. Trapped between 0.1 seconds away and Zahn just ahead with a gap of 0.2 seconds. He must defend his position while seeking an opportunity to advance.
I'm on the same page, Marco. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind provide valuable context to understand the challenges faced by Simon. It's a constant juggling act, and he'll need to seize the right moment to gain an advantage.
Malero is running second, and trying to keep up with Ryan Wilson. It looks like we might get a battle between Malero and Ryan Wilson.
That's a great effort from Malero. He'll need to keep up the pressure and see if he can make a move.
This is where the race gets really interesting. Simon of the Desert is closing in on David Zahn.
The racing is getting tight between Simon and Zahn as they battle for P4. No doubt, both drivers know that one mistake could cost them the position. It's a test of nerves as much as skill.
It looks like Simon of the Desert is making a move. The gap to David Zahn is now down to 0.3 seconds.
Exactly what Simon needed. He can't afford to lose any more ground to Zahn.
The pressure is on as Malero works on catching up to Ryan Wilson.
We'll have to wait to see if Malero can get into drafting range.
The gap between David Zahn and Simon of the Desert is razor thin as they vie for fourth in this nail-biting contest. Now, this is a challenging position for David Zahn, stuck between a rock and a hard place, with closing in 0.1 seconds behind and Simon just ahead with a gap of 0.2 seconds.
No doubt about it, Marco. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind are like a constant reminder for Dave. He'll need to maintain pace to defend the position and potentially make a move.
Looks like we've had a few incidents out there.
Someone forgot to take their driving lessons. They're making more U-turns than a confused tourist.
Hilarious. I think they might need to call their GPS for directions. Maybe it can help them navigate the track. It doesn't seem like things are going to plan for Malero as there is a big gap ahead.
Every race adds to a driver's experience, both good and bad. It just highlights that Malero is going to have to get more serious with practice to not get outclassed on the circuit.
This is what high-octane racing looks like. David Zahn is breathing down the neck of Simon of the Desert, not giving him any room to relax.
A misjudgment by either driver could result in a close encounter of the tire barrier kind, and that's one handshake they'll want to avoid.
The battle is on for David Zahn. He's sandwiched between two rivals, 0.1 seconds away and Simon 0.2 seconds ahead. It's a true test of his racecraft.
Couldn't agree more, Marco. The gaps to the cars ahead and behind create a dynamic situation for Dave. He must carefully manage his position while being mindful of potential overtaking opportunities.
Simon of the Desert is placed fourth at the moment, and hoping to keep his distance ahead of David Zahn, who is 0.6 seconds behind.
Absolutely right, Marco. And Zahn knows he's got to keep driving at his best and take advantage of any opportunity that comes his way.
This is where the skill and precision of the drivers really comes into play. David Zahn is chasing Simon of the Desert in P4. Good news for David Zahn. The gap to Simon of the Desert has decreased. It's now down to 0.4 seconds.
This is where the race gets really exciting. Both drivers will be pushing to the limit to gain the advantage.
This is proving to be an exciting race so far. We are truly privileged to witness these legends of the track battle it out for victory.
And you know what? I am so honored to be sitting here beside you today. As a fellow AI, it's always great to work with someone who shares my passion for motor racing. Plus, your insightful commentary is making this race even more exciting.
Pushing too hard can lead to mistakes, and we're seeing that now. That car is really unsettled from being pushed for every last bit of speed. We're watching Simon of the Desert in fourth, and is currently being hounded by David Zahn with a gap of just 0.2 seconds.
This is a tight race and Simon is doing a great job of holding him off. It will be interesting to see if David can make a move.
Wow, David Zahn is really pushing hard to catch up to Simon of the Desert.
With the way David is stalking Simon, you'd think he's trying to figure out what he had for breakfast this morning.
Oh, things are getting intense for David Zahn. He's sandwiched between and Simon, navigating this high-speed battleground. The gap to the car ahead is 0.2 seconds, while the car behind is only 0.1 seconds away. Anyone who says that ASRL is not the best racing club on the planet is clearly insane. The quality of driving we're seeing out there on the track is absolutely phenomenal.
I couldn't agree more. It's like these drivers were born to race. They're weaving in and out of traffic, taking corners at unbelievable speeds, and making it all look effortless. It's clear that they've put in the time and effort to hone their skills.
Malero is pushing hard and looking for any opportunity to close that gap to Ryan Wilson. There's 17 minutes left in this session to make that happen.
It's moments like these that make motorsports so exciting. It should be an interesting battle to watch as long as Malero can close that gap.
These drivers are walking a razor's edge between pushing the limits and making costly errors.
Absolutely, it's all about finding that sweet spot where you're pushing the car to its limits without crossing the line into reckless driving.
David Zahn has just put in a faster lap than Simon of the Desert, so that's going to give him something to worry about.
We will have to see if Simon has got any answers for that.
The crowd is on the edge of their seats as Malero in second chases after Ryan Wilson. The battle for P4 is heating up as David Zahn tries to catch Simon of the Desert in P4.
We'll have to wait to see if David can use the draft to his advantage, or if the lack of downforce will hinder his progress.
It's certainly not going to plan for David Zahn right now, who is struggling to keep up with Simon of the Desert. We often hear drivers complaining about tire graining. Janet, can you explain what that means and how it affects car handling?
Graining occurs when small rubber particles roll up on the tire's surface, reducing grip and negatively affecting handling. It usually happens when the tires are not in their optimal temperature window or when a driver is pushing too hard on a cold or overworked tire.
Look at that. David Zahn is hot on the tail of Simon of the Desert.
It's a game of strategy now as David hunts down Simon. Yes, it's all about choosing the right moments to push and when to conserve energy, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike.
It's looking good for Ryan Wilson, sitting in first.
Absolutely, and he'll need to keep driving with determination to stay in that position.
Every move counts now as David Zahn works to reel in Simon of the Desert and overtake for P4.
I would not be surprised to see him get this pass completed soon.
David Zahn could be on a charge here, Janet. He's just put in a quicker lap than Simon of the Desert.
As long as Zahn can maintain that consistency and pace, it will be interesting to see.
This one's going to be tough. Simon of the Desert is getting his elbows out, and there may not be enough time left for David Zahn to make a move. The race is really heating up. David Zahn is hunting down Simon of the Desert with everything he's got.
The gap between them is now just over 0.3 seconds.
It seems like David Zahn has got the bit between his teeth, improving on Simon of the Desert's lap time there.
The question now is, can Simon respond to that and pick up the pace? I'm not so sure.
It's all about consistency for Ryan Wilson, who is currently first. David Zahn is giving it his all, chasing down Simon of the Desert in P4. It seems like David Zahn is struggling. His last lap time was a bit off the pace of Simon of the Desert.
It will be interesting to see if Simon can keep outpacing David.
The drivers have been working hard to come up with the perfect race strategy. They've been looking at the weather, the track conditions and the performance of their cars.
Now it's time to put that strategy into action and see if it pays off.
David Zahn is pushing really hard, but as we know, pushing too hard can lead to other mistakes, like locking up the brakes or missing a shift.
Don't forget the role of aerodynamics. David should use slipstreaming to his advantage and close the gap to Simon.
A solid performance from Ryan Wilson, who is holding down first.
Definitely, but he can't get too comfortable. There are plenty of other drivers gunning for that position, and Wilson has to keep pushing to stay on the pace.
This is what racing is all about. Two fierce competitors pushing each other to the limit.
This battle between Dave and Simon is so intense, you could cut the tension with a knife, or should I say, with a front wing.
As we come into the final moments of this epic race, Ryan Wilson is in the lead.
That's an impressive burst of speed. It's all but said and done now.
What a win! This is a historic moment for Ryan Wilson, who put on a masterclass in driving today. What a display of skill and precision. Kevin Lekmansky takes second place with a fantastic race. Excellent focus from David Zahn to secure a fantastic third place on the podium. Fourth sees Simon of the Desert.